Welcome to Follow South Jersey's Follow Salem Podcast about the people, places, and all things good in and around Salem, New Jersey. In this episode, we talk with Nelson Carney Jr., president of the Salem County NAACP. We discuss some of the issues that the NAACP deals with here in the local community, and we spend some time talking about the Juneteenth holiday. Welcome to the Follow Salem Podcast. I'm Dean Johnson, editor-in-chief of Follow South Jersey. Today we have with us Nelson Carney Jr. He's the president of the Salem County NAACP. Welcome, Nelson. How you doing? Good. So, Nelson, you're a Salem OG, right? You're from here. Can you tell us how growing up here? Have you been here all your life?
Been here all my life. Actually, my parents still live on 7th Street, around the corner here. Okay. I'm a graduate from Salem High School.
What year?
84. Class of 84. So, 41 years this year. I've worked at Mannington Mills for 22 years. When I graduated, I went to Lang City to work.
Okay, where'd you work there?
Taj Mahal, 10 years as a cook.
Okay.
Then I decided I was young, so I tried to do another career. I was a tractor trailer driver for about 3 years until I had an accident, and I said this wasn't for me.
Okay.
And that's when I went to Mannington Mills.
Right.
And I worked for Salem County Public Works for 5 years. Now I'm currently at the Salem City School District with John Finley.
Right. How long have you been with them?
3 years.
3 years.
Yes.
So tell us. So you were here. I guess if you graduated '84, like the '70s, you were a kid here.
Yes.
Right. How was it growing up here in the '70s?
A lot of racial, black against white. Right here next to this building, there used to be a Texas Wiener restaurant, and I remember early '70s. I was a kid, but I remember they had a riot per se, black against the white, right here on this Broadway, right here on Broadway. Wow. And a young man, I think, did lose his life. That was back in the '70s. So
right.
yes.
See. And how different is it today from then?
Well, there's 80% African American live in Salem City, so it's pretty well changed.
Right.
The schools are pretty well diverse, a little bit.
More integrated.
Right. So we try to keep, me as president of NAACP, we went to the police departments, and I've got an excellent working relationship with school boards throughout the county. Right. And we try to keep it diverse with teachers and all staff members. And the police departments also, right. I had an excellent working relationship with the prosecutor's office. They're well diverse. We used to have a little issues with the county of keeping the county office more diverse, but we're still fighting through that.
So how did you get involved with the NAACP in Salem County?
Well, we had shut down for a while. We had an office right across the street there about 20 years ago. We shut down for like 3 years because just, didn't have a president. And Richard Smith, our state president now, he was the vice president of the state. And he come down with Ken Braxton, who was the president at the time, who passed away. We all got together in Salem County, just, get the branch up and running again. We felt it was a good thing to do, and we did. And we had strong several years until the past, since COVID. COVID really hurt us. Sure. We lost a lot of members, and just getting the youth involved is tough.
Right.
So we were non-compliant for membership, but now we are compliant. Okay. Because I just spoke with my president on Friday, not knowing this was coming up.
All right.
We got to have 50 members to stay compliant.
Okay.
We are now at 52. We're in the process of getting 30 members free membership for a whole year, just to get them to join us. Yes, to get them in, and hopefully they'll continue. Right. And we're mainly targeting the youth because we need the youth. Most of my executive committees, we're not old, but we're not young.
Yeah.
And
we're not going to admit.
Right. We want this to continue, and we got some good programs coming up. I know we're going to get the NAACP back into the schools. We used to have programs in the schools where the youth would run their own program, just like we do.
And when you say a program, give me an example. What kind of program are you talking about?
Well, like the branch.
So it's almost like a student branch of the NAACP in the school itself.
Right. They'll do what we do. They'll have a president, treasurer, secretary. They'll have their meetings and run it just like we do.
Mm-hmm. Do all the counties in New Jersey have chapters?
Most around here, yes. South Jersey, we got 50, I forget how many branches we have. 48 branches, I think, throughout the state of New Jersey.
Okay.
I know we have a working relationship with Gloucester, Cumberland County has one. So yeah, we're all pretty well working together.
Right. Why is it beneficial for a community to have a chapter of NAACP?
Well, my opinion is we've solved a lot of cases here in Salem County, discrimination cases. I can go back when the prosecutor Linehan was here. Whenever there was an incident, we had a couple of incidents of noose hanging in the alleyway. We get phone calls. He would call me right away because he knew it was coming, you know. And we had a noose hanging a couple years ago in Mannington. That was on the news. And we went to the table and we all worked together and resolved this issue.
I mean, can you, I mean, without, I don't know if you can't give specific details, but tell us about, like, how does that process work? So, you know, somebody calls it in. Look, here's a picture. Somebody hung a noose. You get a call. What do you do next?
Well, first thing I do, I contact my executive committee because, you know, we are working together. I'm the president, but we all work together.
Right.
I do my research. I normally call the police department or the prosecutor's office or the sheriff's department. We'll say, look, we got an issue here. They'll say, let us check into it. And 90% of the time they do.
Right.
And they get back with me, and most of the time we resolve the issue.
And how is it resolved? Through, I mean, are you finding out who did it, or are you?
Yeah, we know pretty much who did it, and like the noose hanging in Mannington, you know, the guy, he claimed he didn't realize how offensive it was to people of color. But Sam, I'm only going to take the word. You know?
Okay.
I can only take his word. He
Right.
came to a branch meeting and he apologized.
Okay.
And like I said, most of the people they're not educated on, you know, what people of color, what they went through, like
Sure.
Juneteenth and
Right.
just so much they don't realize. And that's why it's important to teach it in school.
Right.
We try to, you know, there is an Amistad law since 2002 in the state of New Jersey that they are to teach Black history. I know the state NAACP has sued the governor for not enforcing it. It's a law, but they have not enforced it.
Right.
So a lot of schools aren't teaching it.
Right.
So it's that's an ongoing struggle there.
Have you been affected or see effect of, you know, people getting rid of DEI, coming down from the federal government down to, you know, I guess the community?
Right. It hasn't really affected us yet. You know, that's the part that, you know, people, I don't know if they don't think it's going to happen, but it is happening. It's trickling down here. I know some of the schools have got some of their budgets cut, and I think here in Salem County we'll be all right because we have an excellent working relationship with prosecutors' offices, police departments,
Schools.
school boards. Yes. So,
Right. So how did you become president then?
well, every 2 years we're elected, and general membership comes out to our election. We'll have a list of nominees' names, and those who, you know, get voted in. So
Right.
if anybody else wants to run, they're more than happy, believe me.
Right.
I've been doing this
It's
for
almost
11
like, who
years.
doesn't want to do it?
Right. I've been doing this for 11 years, and, you know,
Okay.
it's not a paid position. It's volunteer, so.
So the issue you bring up about the news seems like an extreme. What are some of the other pressing issues within the community in and around Salem, either city, county?
Police brutality, they claim, you know.
They claim, who's they?
The people
Right,
in
okay.
the community.
Right.
Like I said, we do a thorough investigation whenever we do this.
Right.
A lot of people come to the NAACP think we're lawyers. We're not. And we don't really give you lawyers. You know, we help you try to find a good lawyer.
So you're advocates.
Right. I mean, we have a state lawyer for the NAACP, and he takes some of the cases that he feels that are really legit.
Right.
And then we've had cases where people come to us and we do our background. You know, we do a background check, and we can't help you. We don't take people that've been in jail for murder. We don't take people that've been in jail for drugs. We don't go through none of that. It's
Right.
all about discrimination.
So tell me about some of the initiatives that your chapter is currently focused on. You mentioned programs coming up. What kind of programs can we see within the next 6 months to 12 months?
Well, we just had our annual banquet where we honor people in the community.
Right.
I first got my first award after 11 years of president.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I don't do it for the awards, you know. It just sometimes it's great to get your flowers while you're alive. And like I said, we lost our great president, Ken Braxton. He was my mentor. I could always go to him, and he knew his education on Salem history of NAACP, and he's truly missed. And we just lost another good advocate of the branch, Cecil Parsley, who lives here in Salem. He lives on the other end of Broadway, and he, these folks, when I call them, they're right there, And getting young folks today to do that is a little tough.
Right.
If they don't want the phones or emailing or texting, it's tough.
Yeah.
And I really wish, because I said I'd like to step down one day.
Right.
That's when I'll be in the background, but I just can't see the branch go under right now. So
Right.
I'm staying hanging in there.
So aside from the banquet, what other things?
Oh, we had our first annual MLK breakfast this year, and we're planning on doing it again next year. Because Mount Pisgah used to do that every year, and Ernie Henderson, who was a teacher up to the high school, he did that, and he had passed also. So, and COVID stopped that breakfast, and I said, you know what's been in my heart for 5 years to get that breakfast going. It was a great success. We had a couple of storms to delay it to February.
It's
but
tough to when you're
right,
February is a
right.
tough month of planned events.
Yes. Well, we had a snowstorm in January, the actual day of MLK. So I said, you know what? And it's hard to get people to come in on weekends for these type of things with the schools. So we had it on President's Day, and it was a great success.
Okay.
We really don't have any of those planned for the year. We tried to go to, I know Salem City's having their 350th anniversary.
Right.
We are involved in that deeply. Mount Zion is having their Juneteenth. Mount Zion is the church itself, and Pastor Jones is also lifetime members. So we supporting them on Juneteenth events. They're having the march on next Friday, and at the church they're having their annual fair.
Right. So you guys are all involved in all
Yes,
that, and your presence is there with all that. So how is you working with local officials? How is the relationship with local officials? Is it friendly? Is it adversarial? A little of both?
It's a little both. They respect me and I respect them. We all have a job to do, and sometimes they should just move a little faster in my book. But that's the way the world is. So, most officials, they know me very well, and like I said, we have an excellent working relationship with everybody throughout the county. So,
how can the public become more supportive of the chapter's work?
Well,
even before that, how do they find out what you're doing?
Well, we try to we are, like I said, we've been down for the past year. Our membership has, and we're trying to get it back up.
But you said you're back up now because you said you were 51, 53.
Yeah, you had to have 50 or more members. Right. So we're up to 52, and we get 30 more here, hopefully within the next month or so.
Right.
We'll have 80 some. What was the question again?
Yeah, because how can people support? How can the citizens, well, first of all, how do they find out what you're doing?
Well, we do have a Facebook page. How active it is, I've got to get that redone. That's the most important.
It is. I checked it out.
Yes,
I think
it's old. It's old.
It's old.
So I have been working on that, and hopefully before the summer's over, we'll have that up and running because I want to have that done before October.
Right. Before the 350th.
Yes.
Right.
And we try to advertise the best we can. We have a general membership meeting the fourth Monday of every month, right down to the Hetty Center down here in Salem now. We used to have it at Mount Zion, but we moved it from there because folks aren't comfortable coming to a church. And I've heard that many times. So I said, well, look, we got a little center down here, and they, said I could have that once a month. So the last meeting we had was a nice crowd. Not very much room in there, but it's a nice crowd to have,
Right. So how can people support it then? How can the community at large support the NAACP, aside from becoming members? Now, is membership, and it's just a question, is membership specifically for Black Americans or Black people?
It's for everyone, all races. We have white folks in the NAACP. What people don't realize is white people invented the NAACP. They don't realize that. Back in 1905 when 116 years old we are. So.
Okay. All right.
And they can support when people come to us. First thing I ask them, would you like to join? If you want us to work for you, $30 a year for a membership is nothing.
Right.
And we need, like I said, we need young folks to help us, because I'm not old, but I'll be 60.
Right.
So I'm not the technology that these young kids have, like the Facebook and all that.
Right, TikTok, all
Yeah,
that.
TikTok, they're good at that, you know, and that's what we need in our branch.
Somebody to take over that.
Somebody
and
take
then
over that,
Do
yes.
that outreach.
So me as president, I can say, put that on Facebook or TikTok. They know what to do.
Right.
Because I don't. I go to my kids and my grandkids
Right.
and ask them all the time.
Right.
But we, you know, like I said, if they get involved in NAACP, we just could just work together and get up there, because we've been sit back 50 years. We've been sit back.
So where does your funding? I mean, I'm assuming funding comes from your membership fees.
Yes.
Do you have other sources of funding?
The banquets we have, that's our biggest.
Okay.
Our
Is that annual banquet?
Annual banquet, yeah, that's our biggest, and that's where we give awards out to, you know, students and community leaders or whoever, preachers, and that brings us a little piece of change. But after a while, that's gone. You know, time you pay your little bills we have,
Right.
Plus National gets so much of it.
So, all right. So you don't get stuff from National. National gets stuff from you.
Pretty much, yes.
Right. And
Right.
state as well?
Yes. Well, we get support from the state if we really, really need it. And the national, it has to get pretty bad before they intervene. But
Now, has the role of the NAACP changed, or how, if you compare it to the civil rights movement in the 1960s, compared to today, has that role evolved into something different?
different as
Well, I'm not sure. Is it the same role? Are you doing?
you mean as leaders?
As leaders
Yes.
In civil rights?
No, it's pretty much the same. Pretty much the same. Like I said, there's a lot of folks in the state up north. They always forget about us here in Salem County. When they come down here, they think they're in another world. But I get a lot of support from the folks up in North Jersey that have been in NAACP a long time.
Are you seeing some of the same challenges as, let's say, the 60s and
Yes.
today? And you're
Yes.
talking, you know, like, let's say 60 years. You're going to be 60 years old.
Right.
You were born in 67, I'm assuming?
66.
66. So we're talking about 60 years. Do you see the same issues that were happening in 66 with the civil rights movement as in today in 2025?
Maybe not the exact same, but they're similar. You don't see maybe white, you can't go into, you know, white and black can't go to the bathroom. You can't drink from the water fountain.
Right.
You don't see none of that, but it's I don't know how to explain it, but it's there. Racism has really rose on since Trump's been in office. Like I said, with the DEI and cutting out all of that, and people, our state national president Derek Johnson said, "We've been through this before. We just have to stay calm and educate ourselves on these issues, and getting folks to educate themselves is a tough battle, because you know I get upset sometimes when you look at the news and you see something happening discriminatory, and just like when they shipping the people back to their countries and all that, that's heartbreaking. You know, I can understand some of it, but not all of it. So we are similar to what happened in the 60s here. Maybe not as vague. It's just tough. But I can only speak on Salem County.
Of course.
And we do have some racial issues here in the county. Like I said, I constantly go to the commissioners all the time and tell them, when you go into the county office, it's all people non-color. I said, everybody in this county is of different races. Everybody pays their taxes of all races. When they come to that county office, if they have an issue, they need to see someone that looks like them. And that's what I tell them in the schools and the police departments and the sheriff's departments.
Right.
And that's what I try to tell them. You have to be more diverse.
And it's not that way right now.
No. Some of the places are, but not all.
Right.
And it just upset me with the county that I've been fighting this for years. It's been going on for years with them. It's been newspaper articles, and there's, you know, recordings of me even speaking on that.
So what are you most proud of during your tenure as president in here in Salem County?
Wow, never really thought about what I'm most proud of. Well, I'm still proud of that we got the branch up, still going.
Right.
That's number one,
Right.
yes.
Right.
And we are trying to get our youth back in. And like I said, I got some good folks working on some things. I know things don't happen overnight. And I think come September next year, we'll have some good programs for the NAACP back in our schools.
Right. And what's your long-term vision for the chapter?
Getting some young folks to take over and let me step down.
Right. My time's almost up.
Yes. You know, I many times I wanted to throw that towel in, but I just couldn't.
So what do we want to tell this new generation, this next generation, about civil rights leaders and how to be a civil rights leader? What advice would you have for them?
They have to
How
get
do you inspire
involved.
them?
They have to get involved. It's just not with NAACP, everything, the politics in the world, because that's the problem with the kids today. They don't understand, and you know, voting rights. You know, we had a lot of people die for us to vote.
To
vote. You know, and right now, you know, when I see people go to the polls, especially Salem City and Penns Grove, and the numbers are like 28%, that's sad. When you got 80, 90% of people of color in these towns.
Right.
You should be out there voting. I mean, it's just the highest voting we had was when Obama ran. Mm-hmm. That was the highest. Even when Kamala ran last year, it wasn't very high.
Right.
And it's just sad.
Right. So if somebody wants to get involved in the Salem County NAACP, what should they do? How can they get in touch with you?
Contact myself or any one of my executive members. We do have, like I said, we do have a Facebook page, but it's not up to date. I'm going to get that up.
Right.
They can contact me, my personal page, and somehow people get a hold of me through the county. I don't know. That's what I heard. So, because I asked people, well, how do you get a hold of me? Well, I've seen it online, and so they contact me.
Do they have an email?
I have an email, yes. ncarney0404@gmail.com.
Okay, very good.
Well,
Yeah.
my cell phone number, too, 856-899-0738.
All right. Interested in getting involved? Give you a call.
There you go. Right.
Now, earlier, you had mentioned Juneteenth. And this episode is going to be, it's going to be on Juneteenth. So happy Juneteenth.
Right.
So let's talk about that for a little bit. So can you give a simple explanation? Because I think some people out there aren't really sure what Juneteenth is.
Yes. It's emancipation and proclamation. It's when the slaves were set free.
Right.
You know, that's the first thing.
Officially
set free.
I believe that was what, 1860.
1865 or something like that.
1865 was Juneteenth.
Okay.
Was in Texas.
That's okay. And like I said, I have it all wrote down. I had a big article on it, and I didn't bring it with me because I didn't think I was going to speak on it. But it is important, like I said.
Because it was the last community
To
find out
right,
that they were actually free. They were slaves for, I think it was something like 900 days after the Emancipation Proclamation was enacted.
Right.
And it took literally almost 3 years.
Yes.
To become free.
And there's a lot of confusion on that here in the state of New Jersey.
Okay.
Because the governor passed it, 2 or 3 or 4 years ago. And they made it on the third Friday of every month. Then when the President Biden did it
in 2021,
he
made it a federal holiday.
He made it a federal holiday, and he did it on that
June
Monday.
19th.
The Monday.
Okay.
Yes, but they celebrated on the Monday on the federal side.
Right.
And people get confused with that. It took me a whole year for this county. Once the governor made it official, and then Biden made it official. Salem County at the time did not make it official. So me as president, I went to every meeting to the commissioners for a whole year. They kept saying, we're going to approve it. So I'm going to come to every meeting until you do. And it took them a whole year, and they finally approved making Salem County.
Why do you think it took so long?
Politics. Because I know I spoke with some of the commissioners off the record, and they said, we're going to do it. And, you know, my big argument was it's a federal and state holiday. Mm-hmm. You got employees in the county that are federal and state.
Right.
And there's going to be no mail that day. There's going to be no banks that day. So you're going to have employees sitting in the office doing nothing.
Right.
So
it doesn't make sense.
No. They come to the conclusion, and they agreed with me, and I thank them for that.
Personally, what was your reaction when Juneteenth? I'm assuming you had known about it prior to. What was your reaction when Biden signed it into law and into a holiday, federal holiday in 2021?
A little shocked, but I wasn't shocked because it's been a long time coming. We went through the same thing with Martin Luther King. Mm-hmm. Many years of trying to get it passed, And there's still some folks today that don't honor that day.
Right.
So just a couple weeks ago, just to give you a little history, Mannington School wanted to do away with Martin Luther King Day. I got my entire executive committee to go to Mannington School, and we had a meeting with the superintendent, principal, because she's both.
Right.
And we sat to the table, and we asked her why did she want to take it away, especially now with all that's going on with DEI. And her thing was, well, we want to educate our kids about Martin Luther King. I said, well, I agree with you on that, and they have them come to school. It's a half a day of school in service. But my thing was, you're supposed to do this year round. Don't you do this to the kids right now, because we've had programs. There's church programs on Martin Luther King Day where they can go to and do day of service. Send them to school. We don't know if they're doing a day of service, So she agreed with us, and she took that off the table and put that back on the counter.
Right.
These are the things the NAACP are here to do.
Right. And is that even, like I said, at first I've heard of that. Is that even put out there? Do you guys put press releases out there saying,
no,
hey,
we didn't.
This is what we do? Do you
We
rather?
should.
Yeah, I mean, would you rather go under the radar like you're doing, or saying, hey, look, we've now had this conversation, and Martin Luther King is going to stay in Mannington schools?
Well, we did go to a school board meeting, and that's, the problem with Salem County, we don't have a newspaper no more. We used to have a newspaper, and every little thing was right in it.
Right.
Now we don't have one no more. It's tough. Like I said, social media.
Right. But you have a group that is not on social media either,
Right.
People who sometimes 60,
Especially in
70 above.
NAACP, we have a lot of seniors that are, still members, and they just don't get out no more.
Right. So why is Juneteenth an important holiday for all Americans, not just Black Americans?
Well, it should be just not a day off. A lot of people say, oh, I'll take it because it's a day off. I heard that.
Of course.
And no, we should remember what people went through to get this holiday and what those slaves went through. We have people right here in Salem County. There's a lot of slaves buried around in this county that, went through the slavery. And one was, can't think of his name off the top of my head. He was a school teacher here in Salem County. The history in Salem County is so great. And, this is why we should honor Juneteenth, because the history of it.
Right.
Mostly the history.
How does Juneteenth tie into the broader struggle then of racial justice in America?
Well, most folks think it's like Martin Luther King. They feel it's just a black holiday. No, it's not. There's, white folks put their hands on the battlefield like people of color. You know what I mean? So I don't want to say the wrong thing, but everybody should just work together and support this. I mean, there's been so many lives lost for Juneteenth, and we still struggle to keep it going. I mean,
I mean, this is the 21st century.
Right.
Why do we still have these racial issues?
I know. I want to say one thing because our president puts it up there.
Okay.
He's letting it go on. Our national NAACP is fighting every day.
Right, but it was going on when Obama was president. It was
Yes.
going, I mean, it's still it's ongoing.
I have no answer why discrimination is still alive. I really don't, because people look at me because I'm light skinned. They ask me, "What are you, white, Spanish, or what?" Then I tell them what I am, and
Right.
I do have a Nanacoke Indian in me. So people just it's just so much mixed kids today, mixed races of children, and I just don't understand why people are so racist. But I've noticed since Trump's been in office, racism has become more and more aggressive.
Right.
And some of my friends, comes down to them. I hear it from the old folks. It's in everybody, but eventually it comes out. Now, that's why I'm gonna do that.
Right.
So
what can we do about it? How do we do that? How do we start the conversations? And it's almost as if people are afraid to have the conversation because they're going to say something that is
they're afraid, like I just said,
offensive
yes.
or didn't mean to offend you, but
Right.
how do I ask the question without asking the question? What do we do? I mean, and it's not just the kid. I mean, it's the kids, it's the adults, it's
Right. And like I always say, I work to the school, and these little kids, some of the things that come out of their mouths sometimes in the hallway, it starts at home.
Yeah.
It really does. You know, these kids are taught to say what they say, and I don't really have an answer to that. How do we, you know?
How do we have this? What are the deeper conversations? What should we be talking about?
We should be talking about making our community better, safer.
Together.
Yeah, together. You know, I know the mayor here in Salem City struggles, you know, trying to bring jobs into the community. I said years ago, Salem City was the place to live. Mm-hmm. Downtown here, we had probably 5 pizza stores and
you had a JCPenney. We're in the former JCPenney building
right now. We
had
a Sears down the street, and we had several plants. We had Anchor Hocking, Gainers. We had 2 supermarkets, A&P and Acme.
Right.
So what happened in the years? I know what happened. Places like DuPont closed up.
Right.
Madison Mills closed or pretty well shut down.
Right.
Anchor Hocking. And those families made good livings here in Salem City. My father worked at
and they were diverse families. I mean, the people who worked there, it was a diverse group.
Absolutely, yes. And, you know, I remember going to streets in Salem. I don't care, white streets or black streets. If the neighbors got on you, they got on you. You know, nobody. They would tell your parents you got in trouble again.
Yeah, right.
That's all gone now. You holler at somebody's kid today, they want to fight. So.
Right. Right. So, what lessons does Juneteenth do you think is still relevant today? The lessons of, you know, it was like 900 days. You're still a slave, even though the Emancipation Proclamation was there. Finally, you know, the Army comes in and says, "Hey, by the way, you didn't hear?" You know, how does this help now new generations? What's relevant about it?
I don't think the kids today understand it still. They're not taught this,
okay.
And that's, I think, the number one problem we're having now. They don't know what Juneteenth is.
Right.
You know, when I was president, I still am president. When I was vice president, I went to Woodstown School, and I knew a lot of kids. And because we had some issues in Woodstown with racism, and the kids didn't know who MLK was. You don't know who Martin Luther King is? And they didn't know what the NAACP was. Never heard of it.
Right.
So I'm like, wow. We have to teach them in school, and that's the only thing. I mean, racism's taught at home. We could try to teach them in school, but and I know when I was school board president of Woodstown, they didn't want to teach them diversity or black history. They didn't want to teach them that.
Right.
That was one of the reasons why I stepped down from the board in Woodstown.
Why do you think that is?
Racism in the people. Woodstown High
People are just
School.
Not comfortable with it? It makes them feel uncomfortable? It makes them feel...
To be honest, I don't understand it. I don't have an answer for that. I know we have T-shirts, our Salem County branch, that says the struggle continues, which it does. Mm-hmm. So...
But yet there's some people who will deny that.
Yes.
They think that talking about racism creates racism.
That's what they think.
How do you respond to that?
I really don't respond to it because they want to argue with you. They'll continue to have a conversation and you're going in a complete circle with them. And I step away. Right. Because my time is more important than just argue with them about something that I know. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's something I think we all would like to know how we can resolve racism, but it's just getting to the point now, I don't know.
Yeah. What's your hope for the future?
We all get along. Racism ends.
Right.
Like I said, you know, back in the day when, you know, Salem City and black, white, don't matter who you were, we got along. Mm-hmm. We really got along. And somewhere down the line, we lost a generation. Communication, education, all the Asians.
Oh, yeah. All the Asians.
Yeah, I don't know. We're not family oriented no more, I guess, per se. Kids are raising kids. I know.
So it's a societal thing. It's not just a racial thing.
Right.
It's the whole of society. And it's going to take the whole of society.
It takes a village.
Okay.
It takes a village.
Right.
You know, even we got people of color. You know, we've had cases where people come to us and say, well, they don't like me in my job because I'm black. No. You know, we investigate that. That's not a good excuse, you know. Right. We in the NAACP, we investigate that. Come to find out, they late all the time, number one.
Right.
Or they come in and smell like marijuana or something, you know.
Yeah.
So we do our investigation on people. So
Out of your investigations, which ones do you find have merit? And like, are you finding most do have merit, most don't have merit?
Lately, in the beginning, we had a lot of merit. Like I said, we always go to the prosecutor, and we kept things confidential, of course.
Right.
And living in a small community like this, you know the people.
Right.
That helps.
It's hard to keep confidentiality.
That's right, right. Things get back to us, and we know everyone. And I could give you a little short story on something that happened here in Quinton.
Yep.
There's a garage there, and these young guys from Salem, West Side Court, had put their vehicle in the shop. And the guy kept telling them, come pick it up. So they walk up to Quinton, and there's a housing apartment right across the street there. So the guys were knocking on the window of the garage. And they thought the guy was inside, maybe. And then the lady across the street was a white lady. She called the police. Actually, it's called the state troopers because that's Quinton territory. So they started walking back. Police picks them up. And she told the police they were trying to break in. They were not.
Right.
So come to find out, when the prosecutor, they went to the prosecutor and said they felt they was being harassed because they were black, 2 black kids. And so we got involved, and we had a conversation with the prosecutor. And he says, you know what? They're right. Because there was 2 black guys knocking on the door. And if it wasn't for the garage owner saying, yes, I told him to come, and I was not there at the time. So there's the cases that we win.
Right.
And that's what makes me feel good. So
Right. We just got to get to a point where somebody's not going to look just because of the color of
color
their
of their
skin.
skin. Yes. Yes.
Right. Nelson, thank you very much. I appreciate this conversation. It was a great conversation. I think these conversations need to be done more often. But thank you very much. We were with Nelson Carney Jr. He's the president of the Salem County NAACP. I'm Dean Johnson for Follow South Jersey. Thanks for watching the Follow Salem Podcast.